TGIF, everybody. How's everyone doing? Hello. Kevin, Patrick, everyone. Okay, so yesterday I talked about, I thought the euro would challenge this high, take it out. Hi, Peter. What's unusual about it so far is the candle high here is 28. That's why I haven't done anything yet. And the candle high here is 28.10. So I wouldn't say that stops have been elected yet. They don't have to be, but I prefer that they would be. If they had already, I'd be more negative about it. Also, I thought we might be able to travel up to 78.6, 118.57. Everyone with me? It may have been it, but we never took out the high here. Give me a Y if you see it. So I prefer, I'm waiting for comments. Anyone know when Draghi and Yellen are going to speak? Anyone? Hi, Abel. How are you?
Hey, Dale.
Hi.
Hey,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Draghi, let's start.
Yellen, Yellen
speaks in
2 hours from now.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And Draghi 5 hours after Yellen.
Oh, wow. So we won't know till the end of trading today.
Close to.
Not the end. Yeah.
Yeah, not exactly like that, because Yellen is gonna start speaking in 2 hours. So we might get some volatility from there. But yes, having to do with Draghi, we will have to wait. Near the end of today's session. So that might produce some volatility, which obviously that the markets then are going to digest whatever they hear from Draghi, and we might have some good reactions on Monday's open as well.
Yeah. So to try and position yourself today, Steve, it's not my style. How about you?
Depends on what you're looking. Depends of if you already have a position which you just want to manage ahead of the event risk. Depends on if that position is in the money or out of the money. Depends on if you have some specific thesis which you have you have a reason to believe that. For example, it's more or less unexpected. So in this case, you might be looking into a good movement if something that has a low probability happens. It depends on your style of trading, actually. But I would agree with you that obviously I can say one thing for sure. If I was a short-term trader, I wouldn't try to position myself following Yellen, for example, because in some crosses, Yellen might have a lasting effect even after Draghi speaks. But for example, if you look to do something with the Euro USD following Yellen, if she creates some kind of movement with the dollar, might be an fool's errand, since Draghi might completely reverse that just a few hours afterwards. So it depends on what you're looking to trade. But one thing is for sure, I'm going to go into detail later on, because obviously the last few days we had very little movement in the markets. So more or less we have already talked about whatever needed to be talked about, having to do with technical analysis, etc., because almost nothing has changed since Monday from a technical analysis perspective. But I can tell you one thing for sure. The markets have been on pause, expecting Yellen and Draghi to give them something to move on with. So, in my opinion, there is a lot of people that have been on the side ahead of these speeches, which means that no matter what Yellen and Draghi say, volatility is coming back in the market, because even if they say what is completely expected, still investors will find this as an opportunity to go back in the market, and that on itself is going to increase the volume, the trading volume, which was very low, and create some volatility. So my point is that after we're done with the speeches, even if the speeches deliver not much, I still believe that volatility is coming back in the market. The question is in what extent, and that is obviously something that only Yellen and Draghi know in advance, because they only know what they want to talk about. Draghi supposedly is there to Yellen supposedly is there to talk about financial stability. So theoretically speaking, Yellen is not there to talk about the US monetary policy. Of course, she will touch, the subject one way or another. But even by speaking about financial stability, there is an opportunity for her to say things that might catch investors off guard. For example, if she decides on the subject of financial stability to talk about stock valuations or some potential credit bubbles or whatever else, that might catch the market off guard. So even if she indeed sticks to the subject of financial stability, it's still not impossible for her to to create some volatility. And I remind you that more than once we've seen Jackson Hole announcements and speeches steer the market for the following periods of time. For example, following last year's Jackson Hole, the dollar rallied for what was it, like 4 or 5 months, something like that, and that was the beginning of it. So I think that today's event risk might prove to be very important for the following weeks or even months. So I think everybody's
sorry, if I may also add, we have to remember that Jackson Hole 2014 is when Draghi announced QE or pre-announced it. So there have been big events at Jackson Hole. So even like Steve says, even if nothing important is said in terms of what the market is expecting, it could really move markets. And I might also go on. Sorry.
Go ahead, Stel. I was just saying, I think the surprise would be a hawkish Janet Yellen.
Yeah, I personally think I agree with Steve. I don't think Yellen is going to be saying much, but I think it's all going to be about Draghi and how the market. Sorry, does she ever? Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah, and you're right. Hawkish Yellen will be a surprise because she's one of the doves, and we know that. So, but I think it's all about what the market thinks is going to be said. And over the last few weeks, a lot of things have been said about Draghi and anticipation, and is he going to, announce how they're going to start tightening and all that. So, my view is that we are probably going to get slightly disappointed by Draghi. That's what I think. So, but it's going to be interesting to see.
Okay. So I really don't know where to go today.
As I said before, Dale, like it or not, having to do with analyzing the markets, we can go through any questions, which I doubt there's going to be a lot, because during the past few days, we've had a look at the vast majority of the tickers, and nothing has changed since. I mean, I don't see even a single ticker that has actually, the only ticker that has actually done something is USD NOK, that has already broken to new lows, which is something that we had explicitly warned about and talked about.
Were short. You were short. Yeah, it was your preferred short over Canada.
Yeah, I'm still short, and Gregor has a pattern in play as well, short there, which actually today he even changed the target, making the target even moving the targets even lower. So besides that, there is nothing much that has moved in the market, because everything is frozen. Everybody's waiting to see. Nobody wants to position on the wrong side of the market just before we get some kind of new trend, for example. I'm not saying that we're going to get a new trend, but it is always a possibility, right? And nobody wants to be holding the bag, just for them to, rush into a position with, they have no reason to do so. So we can go through questions, and I can share my screen and show once again which speakers are at an interesting technical point, which can produce some kind of nice breakouts, and that's what we're going to do. But other than that, absolutely no new developments from a technical perspective or from a fundamental perspective that we had, all week long. This was one of the slowest weeks I remember in time. I mean, we at ForexAnalytix have been live for 13 months already, and I don't remember ever having a slower week than this one.
Okay. Well, we are getting some questions. They're basically asking me to make predictions. Can be really anything that's structural. Euro is too sideways for trading. Historically, volatility is low.
Predictions. I can tell you one thing for sure. First of all, and this is one of the occasions that being a member of ForexAnalytix is about. First of all, we're going to be covering in ForexAnalytix with live market updates, whatever happens. I mean, we have a nice tool that we'll be bringing. I mean, in our live analysis, in our traffic light page, we have a tool that brings straight ahead, any statements or whatever.
Hey, Steve, can you push an alert so they can see it on my screen what it looks like in case there's any new people? Just push an old one. Can you do that?
Oh,
no,
we can push a test alert.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I just want some of the people that aren't subscribers to hear the cool noise and how you won't be able to ignore it, whether it's on your phone or a device at home.
I will push one to you, Dale, not to everybody.
Okay, because it'll show up on my screen, right?
You should do, yeah. Hold on.
So this will show up on your phone while you're out, starting your weekend with Draghi. If there's any, areas breached, support, resistance.
Yeah. Anyhow, the point is that all statements will be analyzed, and any kind of market movement we will cover with.
Here, I heard it. I didn't get the visual, but I heard it.
Yeah, you didn't get the visual because that was personalized. We don't want to send an alert.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
All our members, because some of them are not on the webinar, so no need to spam them with test alerts.
Okay.
So if you go to the bell notifications, he just sent one for you. But anyhow, the issue is that we're going to be analyzing what Draghi and Yellen say, and we will be making sure that this kind of a movement that comes, we will try to warn people if we think that this is the real deal or not, and we will go through any technical updates that are needed live. And I'm guessing that we're going to have plenty of them today because I'm really expecting volatility. I'm not sure if we're going to get it straight after Yellen, because if she doesn't say anything much, the market is also going to wait for Draghi to then position once and for good. So this is one of the few occasions that we might have a lot of volatility during the last 2 hours of a week, which is definitely going to resume on a Monday, because very often investors need to digest whatever has been pushed through. Not only that, also the financial press will go through it. They will shape opinions, they will analyze it, and people will end up, making X opinion about it, and then they will be feeling more certain that, for example, on Monday they have to do that with the dollar or that with the euro or whatever. The only sure thing is that the market isn't expecting something specific from Yellen, and they don't know what to expect from Draghi. I can tell you one thing for sure. Draghi is going to avoid going into the subject of monetary policy as much as possible. In my opinion, if he does so, if he avoids mentioning it, and if he doesn't explicitly make mentions about the exchange rate and its ability to hinder the inflation outlook, and explicitly saying that the ECB is willing to do something about it because they cannot afford it, I think that the market is going to interpret that as a bullish sign. So if Draghi tries to avoid the subject altogether, I think that the euro is going to be bid.
I'm showing everyone the website, man.
Yeah.
I'm taking away your time. Freebie Steve right here. I'm showing all this stuff. I mean, really, guys, admit it. Isn't this cool what they came up with? I mean, you never have to leave this place to find stuff.
By
anyway,
the way, since you're there, just show what the traffic lights of USD NOK. It was just a bit above, and USD CAD.
Here,
see everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. There is some consensus there, I think.
yeah, more than some.
There's the CAD.
That's a macro.
What do you want to show? Candlestick?
Go to basic technical, go to Elliott wave.
Okay, there you go. There's Canada. So it looks like you might be right that we're going to new lows first. I thought we might put in a higher low. I don't know if that's still possible.
Huh? It's up to Yellen. It's up to Yellen, mate. It's up to Yellen.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But no matter what happens, even if we see a dollar rally today, which from a personal viewpoint, I think the risks having to do with the dollar. So if you need a prediction about Yellen, I'm not going to tell you what she says, but I'm going to tell you something. That the dollar is bearish, but it's been beaten a lot. And I think that any real surprises will be hawkish surprises. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying that the risks are tilted for a bullish dollar reaction. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm saying that it's less of a chance that we're going to see like a huge bearish move in the dollar than seeing a bullish reaction. So what I'm trying to say is that I think there is a decent chance to see some kind of a bullish dollar reaction. But even if that happens, I would still believe that it's a certainty that USD CAD is going to push to new lows. It might do it from a higher level, sure it might, but I don't think that USD CAD is going to avoid hitting new lows. USD NOK has already done it.
Yeah, great trade, Steve. I mean, you laid it out for people. They had 5 days or 4 days to finally see it capitulate.
You mean 5 weeks, right?
Well, I mean the recent entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that it just didn't look like a bottom and kind of a vacation trade you put on. You had so much conviction about it. It wasn't enough to worry you and distract you from having a good time.
Not at all. Honestly, I mean.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I call those vacation trades because, you know, you have a lot of conviction. You're not worried about it. You worry about the things that are questionable. Some things really are layups, aren't they?
Indeed. And that's what I believe is the benefit of being a person that is selective with the trades you take, simply because if you're patient enough and monitor enough markets, you can be choosing mostly the trades that you have very high conviction with to take. And I think that anybody that is involved with the markets and has, you know, from a decent experience and above, has a very high hit rate in the trades that are really trades that he or she are convinced about. The problem is that many people take also a lot of trades that they don't have high conviction on. And that's when they skew the results.
Right. Okay.
By the way, we had some we had some news from the White House that Trump is going to push concept that Trump is going to push through the tax reforms agenda, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, we saw almost no reaction to it. Yes, we do have the risk being just a little bit beat, like 0.2%. SPX is up. The Nasdaq is 0.3 up, etc. But I really don't think that the market is willing anymore, because I had a friend of mine that made a mention about it on Twitter, and that it should have had a positive effect on the dollar. And first of all, nobody's willing to commit ahead of Yellen. And second of all, and most importantly, I think that a lot of people have been burned by putting a lot of faith in Trump's political agenda. And this time, I think that the market is going to be a lot more cautious, and we're not going to see some kind of very bullish price action because of that, unless they can be able to demonstrate that there is consensus among the GOP members about it, and that actually Trump has a tax plan in place that will get enough votes to go through. So
the first thing they have to get through is the debt ceiling by September 30th, and in some kind of tirade.
Yes, otherwise October 1st, we're going to have a government shutdown, correct?
Yeah, and he wants to tie having funds for the wall in it. So if they don't give him the wall, he's threatened to shut it down. Yeah,
which makes no sense. I mean, from a political perspective and from a populist perspective, it makes sense, because everybody is blaming him for not pushing through any of the items that he had in his agenda. And he needs to show that.
Well, that's all he does is try to appeal to his base.
Yeah, exactly. But it makes no sense, because at the moment, the US has a lot of serious open matters and issues, and honestly, the wall to the Mexican border is plainly stupidity. I mean, having to do. Let's not even go into the discussion if it has any point of doing, if there is any serious point of doing it. Because we might have arguments about that, but I can tell you one thing for sure: even if we agree that it's going to be something that's going to have a positive effect, because don't forget that anything has spillover effects as well, both positive and negative spillover effects. Even if we agree, that it's something on a positive direction for the U.S. economy and the U.S. society, etc., etc., etc. Where would you place that in a list of priorities? Obviously very low, right? Especially with, mate.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, in my opinion, this whole thing with the wall was a pre-election gimmick, and Trump now is losing popularity, and he's just trying to remind his voters and the people who voted for him why they voted for him. It's like you say, it's a complete, it's a negligible thing in the grand scheme of things. But he's playing a political game. It's just a political game. He's reminding them of, hey, this is what I promised to do, and I'll do it, and etc. So, they have 1,000 problems, and this isn't one of them. Really shouldn't be. So.
And if it is one of them, it's like the 872 in the list of problems.
Exactly.
Well, face is our base, so we have to please our base, right? So give them
of course.
So let me ask the community. You're our base. You guys still with us? What if we're wrong on the trade next week? Would you still love us? Are you still our base? No one's answering. Give me a why if you'll still love us if we're wrong next week on a trade or two. Look at that. 4 people, yeah. See? That's unconditional. See? That's like Trump saying, I could go out and on the street and shoot someone. Yeah, and no one, they'll still vote for me.
Amir
So-
said no. Thank you, Amir.
He said no, huh?
I know.
Okay.
I know.
No. But a bit,
Good to have one honest guy in the community, huh?
Amir always likes to be a contrarian. I can tell you that
Yeah.
much.
I know.
Okay,
Okay.
so guys, you want to help
Questions?
me?
Yeah.
You want to help me with questions so we can go over some charts
Sure.
and see where we stand before all the event risk begins.
Okay. Well, one of the first ones we got is actually quite interesting. It's oil. It's about oil because of the
Oh, yeah,
hurricane.
We have Hurricane Harvey Keitel hitting.
Yeah.
I think Harvey Keitel's a great actor. We'll see what he does to Texas today. 'Cause
Okay.
It's Hurricane Harvey.
Okay. By the way, Dale, you want to pass me the screen, mate?
Oh, sure. Let's see.
By the way, I have to warn you, I'm already wearing a bathing suit.
Sure.
Webinar, I'm going for a fast swim before yellow
No,
starts.
I don't
no
even
video,
want,
please,
you know
please.
what? I don't even want to imagine you in a bathing suit.
I didn't ask you to do so.
Too much information. And hold it. Face, who thinks that Steve Volge wears a Speedo? Give me a Y if you think he wears a Speedo. You know those European guys, they wear those Speedos instead of trunks.
I know the
And
answer to that.
Are they right? Steve,
I
you
know,
wear a
I know
Speedo?
the answer because we've been swimming together, and no, he doesn't.
Doesn't? Oh,
I don't.
all right, man. Otherwise, I was going to quit. Okay, buddy, you got the screen.
Okay. Let's have a look at crude.
I wasn't able to accept it. So go ahead, buddy.
Okay. Crude. We talked about crude several days ago, and I have nothing really to add because the thing is quite simple with crude. Crude does not look bearish yet, but on the other hand, as long as it keeps failing to close above 49, you cannot be bullish either. So if there is a trade here at the moment, I mean, if I was forced to take a trade, what I would do is that I would be short against 48.80, 49, with the possibility, seeing the possibility of perhaps another push to new lows, like towards 46, 45.5, before perhaps looking to go long. So I think there's a possibility of like an ABC lower, and we haven't seen C yet. So I'm neutral at the moment, but if I had to do something, I would be short against 49, looking for for another push lower. I have nothing else to say about crude because at the moment it has been quite choppy. Okay, so that's what I see with crude. I also saw, Stelio, that we had a question about copper, so we can
Yes.
have a look at copper, and then you can tell me
Yes.
what else we have. And this is copper. I warned in advance when we saw it a couple of days ago that copper remained bullish because we were still in the channel, and I said that at some point we're going to get a move lower and then a new high. Perhaps that move lower is going to come from the 61.8 up here. So perhaps something like this is going to happen. Okay. And as I said when we were asked like a few days ago, I cannot turn bearish even in the short term unless or until we break this ascending channel. Okay, let me zoom out as well, and you can clearly see that copper has been bullish. Okay, this was a large bottoming formation, all this one. Okay, and we broke out of this triangle at an impulsive way. We corrected lower within a channel. We are moving higher again, obviously in an impulsive way. Just look at how steep this ascending channel is. But perhaps when we test this 61.8, it's going to be the opportunity of a corrective move lower in which case, you know, you might even look to buy. So nothing has changed with copper. It remains well bid and bullish. Obviously, this is not the place to be long if you have no commitment, obviously. Right? I mean, if I was forced to be something in the short term, I repeat, I would be short here and not long. But I would rather see a move lower to buy, because the trend at the moment is clearly bullish. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we have, Stelio?
Okay. Robert is asking for an interesting one. Aussie Swissy. Have you ever seen that one? Have you looked at that recently?
No.
Yeah. Aussie Swissy is saying there might be a bull flag on the 4-hour.
On the 4-hour. Okay. Before we have a look at the 4-hour, let's have a look at the daily chart. Okay.
Yeah.
Because obviously. Okay. Okay, this has been rather interesting from what I see here. As you see, I have absolutely no analysis on it. But it has been quite interesting. Let's have a fast look at it. To be honest, it's a good opportunity because I think that Swiss pairs will be popular once again now. Okay, we had a possible. Okay, this looks quite impulsive to me. Somebody can claim this was also an inverted head and shoulders. Okay, in the short term though, before we go to a 4-hour chart, I can tell you one thing for sure. This is some kind of a consolidation. It looks like a triangle to me. It's quite clear. And yeah, even on the daily chart, I think that this looks like more likely to break to the upside than anything else. Okay, so yeah, I can also understand where you see the bull flag in the 4-hour chart. I mean, even on a daily, I can, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I don't have any high conviction from the technicals that I see here. I mean, okay, you can be bullish against, I guess, 75.60 for a move higher, even to new highs. 78 is an upside target. So, yeah, there is the risk reward to be long here towards 78 to retest that high. And as well.
By the way, I have a great lineup next week.
Who do we have?
You guys ever hear of Chris Carolyn? He worked with Robert Prechter many years ago. Does what's called the spiral calendar. Yeah,
Spiral calendar. What exactly is that? I mean, just give us a rough idea.
I don't know. I think it has to do with time.
Okay, so
yeah,
something like a gun technique or whatever. I mean, some kind of technical way to monitor turns in the market, I guess, right?
Yeah, and then I have Murad Azyar, who's very well known. His Twitter handle is @futures trader -traders71. So he's a big S&P guy. And then Bill Downey from @goldtrends.net. And then a market veteran from a long time ago, Joseph Harms, will be with us on Thursday.
By the way, do we have somebody today, Dale?
No one today.
Okay, so today's webinar is going to be a short one.
Well, I do have a quick interview with a guy named Arthur. So when you're almost done, I could play it, and I don't think people will mind if we wrap up early today. Of course not.
Anyhow, I don't expect anything to happen until 5 o'clock. Yeah. I mean, sorry, that was local time until 1.
Okay, durable goods was a beat. Did the yen pop on it?
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Nothing matters.
Yeah. I mean, the market is watching these kind of events but it will just take them into account once Yellen speaks about the dollar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So until then, I don't expect anything to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Cable, by the way, remains at a good place to rebound if we have a dollar negative reaction, because it has already created, you know, this doji yesterday.
And then it held the pullback. It held the pullback.
Yesterday, but we're holding, you know, the support zone, etc. So, for example, I would be looking at the reaction in cable if we had a dollar negative, you know, Yellen speech. I think that the cable would produce one of the good opportunities.
Yeah, I think at least back to your green moving average looks like 29.40, maybe even better. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it could push easily 130 again and see what happens from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So obviously nothing has changed in the Euro USD. The Euro USD is barely holding the bull flag, and unless Draghi does something to it, I mean, unless he actually manages to have, you know, a strong influence of it and talk it down, it is more than obvious that the market is absolutely ready to push it to new highs. So I think that absent a successful attempt from Draghi to talk it down, this thing is very buoyant. It wants to move to new highs. So Draghi is going to have to do something to stop that from happening, because absent of that, it will go to new highs. Sergio, what other questions do we have, mate?
Martin is David is asking about the guppy.
Sure.
And if I may add on what you said on Draghi, we have to remember inflation in the Eurozone is still, you know, under target. So it's going to be difficult for them to come out really hawkish and, you know, saying stuff, because the euro is already appreciated, you know. So
you're absolutely right, Stelio, but the problem is that in my opinion, they don't have to be hawkish for the euro to appreciate further. They just need to do nothing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so first of all, the guppy was one of the few pairs we wrote analysis yesterday on, because actually nothing moved yet yesterday. So it was like the second time, if I remember, in a year that we've actually done no end of day analysis, but only to selective pairs, because actually nothing had moved. And the reason was because we had a very interesting candle from the guppy, which was a piercing line. You can see it here. So piercing lines are reversal candles. And, you know, today we are even seeing some follow through. So it seems like the guppy wants to recover from here. The question is up to where that might lead. The first, you know,
I'd love to see a back test of your breakdown line. I love trades.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. The first level of interest is exactly 100 pips above. Okay, and after that, obviously there is the possibility of, as you said, backtesting the broken support as resistance. So currently, the guppy looks quite good. It's one of the pairs that look good for
Eugene. Eugene, you'll get, if you're a subscriber, you'll get alerts from everyone if it affects their work and their pips in play or something new comes on board. So, you know, you get everyone's, depending upon what they see, you're really getting 5 analysts, or 4.
Indeed.
Yeah.
No, 5.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the guppy, you know, shows potential. I mean, it's one of the yen pairs that look better at the moment. Now, having to do with USD yen, since we're looking at the yen pairs, listen, the USD yen is obviously coiling down here above this low, the 108.80 low. So obviously we cannot be bullish the USD yen at the moment from a technical perspective, simply because it hasn't yet given us any reason. We haven't had a higher high or a higher low or whatever. But for sure, a dollar positive reaction to Yellen's comments and the move above 111 is going to put this in a different perspective. So, I wouldn't be jumping the gun here, but for me, the first important level to break is 111. A break above 111 then opens up several bullish scenarios to consider. But let's first see what happens. One thing I can tell you for sure, if the reaction to Yellen is dollar negative, and we finally break this 108.80, I think that the USD yen is not easily going to avoid retesting 106. So I think that if we finally manage to close above this 108.80 level today, then we're going to 106. Stelio, what other questions we have made?
Actually, we don't. Quick answer to Martin. Martin, Yellen is talking in about 1 hour, 20 minutes from now, just under 1 hour, 20 minutes from now.
Yes.
David is saying he thinks Aussie and sterling will be the best longs if she's dovish. Dollar yen, the best long if she's hawkish. Yep, you're probably right. We don't have any other questions. I will ask you a question if that's okay with you.
By the way, since you mentioned it, I totally agree with Aussie as well. Just look at Aussie. Aussie more or less is in the same position that Euro USD is. Meaning what? That it's barely holding a bullish formation. This is a pennant, looking to break higher, despite seeing some weakness to other currencies against the US dollar lately. The Aussie has held very, very well. It's more than obvious that the market really wants to push it higher unless it gets some strong USD reaction from some unexpected confidence from Yellen or whatever else. So honestly, if you see a dollar negative reaction, I agree that Aussie USD looks very well positioned to move higher to a new high. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah.
Craig's asking you, Stell, about Euro Pound.
Euro Pound, yes. Well, my views on Euro Pound are well known, and I am short from 91, so a little bit out of the money. But I still stand by what I've said. I have medium term targets quite a bit lower. I think it's probably going to be hitting like 84 or something like that within the next 6 months. My view. So I am still bearish Euro Sterling for many reasons. We've done a blog post about it as well.
Keep in mind, guys and girls, for people that are also ForexAnalytix subscribers, Stelios is not a technical trader. I mean, he does our macro. Stelios is not very good at timing terms, but very rarely wrong. So, it's very important. That's why you can see what kind of an analysis initiates a pattern in play, simply so you can take into account how you're supposed to, to interpret that. So,
Also,
for example, Stelios,
the leverage he uses is greatly reduced. It's none.
Exactly. Stelios is a kind of person that can be 200 or 300 pips out of the money, and he's absolutely fine with that. But he has like an extremely high hit ratio simply because he knows why he wants to be long or short something, and he has the patience to wait for those reasons to play out in the market. Okay, I've seen him do that successfully, dozens of times during the past few years. But you need to keep that in perspective.
And that actually takes me, because we don't have any other questions. If I may ask you a question, Steve, one of my positions is short Euro NOK. We saw USD NOK. I'm short Euro NOK from an average of around 930. It's been a while. It's been like 6 months now or something like that. It's now slow. It's now positive. So it's starting to go. I just wanted to have your view on what you think on a more technical level.
At least for leg down to 1914. That's what I think. At least, at the very least.
Yeah.
At the very least, because we had this amazing ascending wedge. I had sorted it as well, if you remember, and then this clearly looks like a corrective move, which should target like the 915 level roughly. And after that, the next target is like wherever it finds this ascending. Let me zoom out a lot so we can see that.
Yeah. This
ascending trend line.
I think it will coincide with a nice big number, round number like 9.
very likely. Very likely. I think this is a trade that can actually work. Honestly, though, and I know it comes from a fundamental perspective, and I know exactly why you took it. But honestly, USD NOK was the place to be.
Yeah, I agree. And my mistake was that I was essentially bullish Norway, so I should have shorted both USD NOK and Euro NOK. I think
that would have been fine as well. Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm going to do next time. But thank you for that, Steve. Thank you very much. What else do we have?
What else
Luca is asking, Euro Yen. Luca is asking, saying, isn't Euro Yen designing a bull flag almost identical to June 2017?
Like this one, that was like a pennant. Yeah, very likely, Luca. Very likely, and I will tell you why I say that. I see both a bullish and a bearish interpretation here, and the bullish one has to have, priority. Why? Simply because this move was impulsive, this move was corrective, this move was impulsive, this move seems clearly to be corrective. That does not mean that the correction is over. Let me show you.
We have a great crowd for a quiet Friday, don't you think, guys? People like hanging out with us.
It's currently, and we like hanging out with them, it's currently testing this trend line, for example. But I agree with you. Any way you look at it, this is 1, 2, 1, 2. I mean, we've been repeating impulse correction, impulse correction. Logic says that the chances are higher for another impulse higher. Especially today, just consider this. We might have a perfect storm for the euro yen to completely thrust higher. Just think about it. Think about a Draghi that is not going to talk down the euro, which is going to get the euro seriously bid. And think about a Yellen that is going to sound more hawkish than the market expects. She doesn't need to be hawkish. She just needs to be more hawkish than, or sound more hawkish than the market would expect after the recent weakness.
Even less dovish.
Exactly. So, for example, today, one of the possible outcomes is extremely bullish for the euro yen. Extremely. Okay, and we are currently right on this descending trend line resistance. So I'm totally with you. This, as a correction, as an ABC correction, can easily be the end of it. Okay, so having a bullish bias on euro yen is the healthy attitude. So I agree with you.
Okay.
We don't have any other questions.
All right, why don't I wrap it up with a little inspiration, and if there's any questions after it. I think that people need to be inspired because let's face it, guys, all of us have gone through difficult time frames in our trading journey. And Jake Bernstein, I'm an old timer, so I remember Jake. He would say the most important ingredient in a trader's personality to make it is stick-to-itiveness, which is a word he made up, meaning that you don't give up, you stick to it. And everyone thinks that FX trading is the most difficult thing in the world. I know it's difficult, But you know, there are other things in life that we have to overcome and have a good attitude. So I just wanted to see if I could get to it again. I think I have to have control of the screen. That's what it is. Okay. And I played this a lot for people over the years. I don't grow tired of it. So I'm going to show my screen here. Need this. Cancel. Cancel. And now I should have it. So this is what this guy had to overcome. And this guy never gave up.